Today's tutorial is for a very fun beginner-friendly pattern. This is the SandDollar Crossbody from Needle and Anchor. I sewed it for the first time about a month ago. Loved the way it looked. I felt like it had a very unique look, but was so simple. Now on my first one, I did it without a zipper closure at the top. I just wanted it super simple and just used a magnetic snap. But the pattern does call for a zipper, so for this I am going to put in the zipper and just show you how to do that. If you are someone who is not really good with bag making, or you're just getting used to bag making, this is the pattern to start out with. It's written very well, everything's broken down easily, and it's just fun and quick. You're not going to have any problems getting this cut and sewn in the same day for sure. So let's go over the pieces we need. I have things kind of prepped ahead of time, so I'll walk you through everything I've done just to kind of get everything explained properly. First thing I want to talk about is the strap. I'm using all cotton woven for this bag. This print is from My Little Shindig. It is part of her monthly fabric club, and this pattern is actually the pattern she's recommending to use in that monthly fabric club. When you get the fabric from the fabric club, when you get your shipment in, you're going to get 6 coordinating prints. This is one of them, and this is one of them. And then you'll also get some kind of freebie or something extra. Like for this time, she has these cork tags from Heartwood and Hide. That is one of them. This is a different colorway of that. And so it's just some little fun extras to help your bag be taken up to the next level. So for my strap, since this is a cotton woven material, I knew I needed something with some extra substance. You can interface it with a medium weight interfacing, but I didn't want to do that because I know that I have in my stockpile this very ugly webbing. I bought this webbing way back in the day before I really knew what webbing could look like. It was one of my first purchases. I purchased this huge big roll from Amazon, and so I'm definitely trying to use it up. So I take that cotton woven and you cut it 4 times the width of whatever hardware you're wanting to use. For me, I'm choosing to use 1-inch hardware in this pattern, so I cut this strap 4 inches wide. I do a double fold, so I fold the ends to the middle, then fold it again, and then on the back I put that webbing. So I don't use any interfacing, but the webbing gives it that strength and that little bit of extra security. I then went ahead and top stitched down both sides, but I left the cotton woven longer than the webbing, and I'll show you what I want to do with that and why I did that, but I did that on both sides. I did slip on an adjustable bar, but I just slipped it on. I haven't done anything else with it. I'm going to show you how I'll be adding the swivel hooks and how I'll finish up the strap, but that's how I have it prepped. After we have that strap, we have 4 main pieces. We have 2 exterior, 2 lining. It is a very cool shape here. It's a diagonal slant, round at the bottom. We will cut these mirrored. So for the first one, for your front, cut it with your pattern piece with the words right sides up, so you're looking at your words. For your second exterior piece, flip your pattern piece over so you cannot see the words and cut out that shape. Do the same thing with your lining. They will be mirrored as well. That is the first steps to do with this. After that, I put a layer of woven interfacing. I did a medium weight on every piece, and then on the 2 exterior pieces, I used the pattern piece to cut out thermoland that would be keeping it out of the seam allowance. You don't have to keep it out of the seam allowance, but I find that I just have a better looking bag. The corners look a little bit better, the edges look a little bit better, the curves, everything just looks crisper when I keep it out of the seam allowance. On your pattern piece, you also have your darts. You do not cut the darts out, you just trace them on. You cut them out of the fleece so there's not extra like interfacing and bulk in that, but these do not get cut out of your main fabric, just traced on. So on your exterior, you'll have 2 darts on your front and your back and on your lining pieces. Just draw them on, trace them straight from the pattern piece. I centered my tag on and I just attached it with a little bit of glue. It has not been stitched around, so I will have to stitch around that. And then for this pattern, let me push these aside so we can see this a little bit better. We have our D-ring anchor. I love this feature. I think it's just very cute, adds such a great touch to this pattern. What I did is a little bit different from what the pattern says. The pattern gives you the measurements to use a contrasting fabric like a lining or whatever, and you can just fold the raw edges to the back and then put that down. Definitely do that. But if you remember, I have this really ugly webbing that I'm wanting to use up. I need to get it out of my sewing room. I have been using ribbon in a lot of my sewing lately. I really like it. It's thin, it's easy, and the one I use from the website I use, 50 cents a yard, and it comes in so many different colors. So what I did to make my D-ring connector was I simply laid this ribbon on top of the webbing. I used a glue stick, just your regular glue stick, to kind of attach it, and then I put the iron on it to kind of set that. The reason why I did those steps is because I didn't want to sew this on yet, because I'm going to have to sew it to attach it to my exterior. I didn't want to have to worry about myself trying to line up those stitches exactly and it looking nice. I knew I wasn't that good of a sewist. So I just used a glue stick to attach these two pieces, and then I just laid it on here. This is not a necessary step. You can do it exactly like the pattern says with the additional contrasting piece here. It's just this is what I had in my house. I'm wanting to use this up and I thought it'd be great. After you decide and cut out and make whatever you're using for this D-ring connector, the pattern tells you how far down you're going to place it. We are working with a slope, so put your ruler right here at the top so that you have it evenly across. The pattern tells you to use double-sided tape, and she tells you, it's a really cool way she tells you to do it. You put double-sided tape from this side and this side, and you leave that little space with no double-sided tape for your D-ring. I don't use double-sided tape, so what I did was I used glue to kind of secure this down. Glue is just a temporary hold, so it could be lifted up if I needed it to, but it's going to hold it enough so that I can sew this down without it shifting. I am going to top stitch a rectangle. So what I'll do is I'll start on this side and do just a small rectangle here, and then I'll come over on this side and do a bigger rectangle all the way around this piece. You can see I've already punched 2 holes. I'm going to do 2 rivets here. So to secure this D-ring in place, there'll be a line of stitching on both sides. So 2 rows of stitching and also 2 rivets. That'll make a very secure D-ring. What's something that's, and you're going to do this on the front and the back, and what you want to remember is that on the front and the back, both of them have to be on the left side. Because what's going to happen is these are going to be put together and then they'll be on alternating sides. So if you get confused, just remember both need to be on the same side. I'm choosing the left. That is how you have the D-rings connected for your strap. I'm going to have a zipper for the closure. Pattern tells you how big to cut your zipper. This pattern comes in a large and a small, so make sure you cut out your zipper for the large. I used the pattern piece to get my zipper tab. I folded my ends of my zipper under 90 degrees, have the zipper pull on. For my lining, I had the darts drawn on the back, interfaced, and then I also cut out a slip pocket. This is just one large piece. As soon as I cut it, I folded it right sides together. The slip pocket, the zipper, the strap, those are the first things we're going to sew. The only thing I have is my 2 swivel hooks, like I said, for my strap. And that's all the pieces we need to do this very simple beginner-friendly bag. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's sew up the zipper tab. So we'll just top stitch across here. I'll go ahead and just do 1/8 of an inch on each of these sides to tack down these 90-degree angles. For the slip pocket, I'm going to start on one side and start stitching here at the bottom, back stitch, go up, pivot, back stitch here. I'm going to leave an opening, that'll be where we turn. Then I'll come over here, back stitch, go across, pivot, go down, back stitch again. That is how we'll sew our slip pocket. To make our strap, we're just going to pull up that adjustable bar. And what I like to do is I like to use the spot, I have it pulled up to where it's really not even in the webbing. The adjustable bar is not there. The reason why I do this is because my machine is a domestic. It doesn't like a lot of bulk. Could it sew through 3 layers of webbing? Yeah, it could. But this will give me a better sew. It'll look better. It'll be neater, and I'll have a better time controlling it. So I'll show you that one more time. My adjustable bar is right where that webbing ends. And so then I can just do a double fold there, and I'm going to sew across. I might put some rivets on here, haven't decided yet. Since I'm already adding rivets to the front and back exterior, I might go ahead and do them there. So let's go ahead and start by putting our swivel hook on. I want my pretty side to be the right side, so I'm going to make sure that I put in from this wrong side. If yours is the same, this step doesn't matter at all. I just slide it up and over, push it through that other side, and then you take this free end, you grab out your other swivel hook, slide it on, and I'm going to have this swivel hook to be right there where my webbing starts. That's where it's going to be, and I'll fold this under, and you can see my fold, the top of that fold is right there where that webbing ends. Again, I might add a rivet or two here, just depends on how I'm feeling by the time I'm done. But on my strap, I'll just need to sew the 2 places where my hair clips are, and that'll attach that. So these are the 3 things we will be sewing to get everything started with this pattern. Okay, so I sewed up the strap. I'm going to set that aside. I'll do the rivets off camera. I'll trim up my threads, of course. My zipper, I need to trim up the tab. I also need to have, I had a little bit of overhang there. Didn't sew it the best. I need to trim that up and trim up these threads as well. For the slip pocket, what I like to do is I like to kind of curve these edges just to reduce a little bit of bulk. At these top corner, I just cut straight across. I don't do anything really to the top. I definitely don't touch that opening where we haven't pulled it in yet. If you trim that part down, it will just make it harder to turn it in. So I definitely don't trim that. Curve that, and then curve here too. So just take off some of that extra bulk. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn this right sides out. And I will use my stiletto or something else that's blunt to kind of poke out those corners. I'm going to take this off camera to iron it though, to get it really nice and flat, and to kind of make sure that I have that opening closed properly. When I come back, we will top stitch it and then we'll attach it to the lining. But I might even add rivets to this. Maybe I want this to be a little bit fancier of a bag. That's what happens sometimes whenever a pattern's a little simple. It gives me the desire, the creativity to have a little bit more fun with it, so it can be just kind of a fun, relaxing project where you can be a little more creative and spend a little more time doing the extra things. If it's a really complicated bag, I'm like, okay, I just got to focus on those pattern steps instead of trying to do anything extra. So that is what we have. One of my sides will be upside down because this print is slightly directional, so I will make sure that goes on the inside, and I will keep the outside the right way. I just use my fingers to kind of pull this opening tight so that the unsewn edges would go inside. They just kind of fold naturally. So I will take this piece over to my ironing board, iron it flat and everything, and then we'll come back and top stitch it on camera. Let's go ahead and pull out one of these exterior pieces. What I want to do, and you probably can't see that I have the 2 lines marked here with chalk because it's white chalk and it's kind of hard to tell on this light print. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew 2 rectangles, one small rectangle here, one larger rectangle here. I'm going to top stitch first down each long side about 1/8 of an inch away. But to close up the rectangle, that's going to encase this D-ring, and the pattern gives me the measurements for those 2 lines, so I'll sew straight on those 2 lines made. So I'm going to do that for the front and the back, and then off camera I will add my rivets. I'm going to start this by back stitching here on this end piece, so that way I don't have to worry about it showing in the final steps, and just makes it a better finish. Okay, I am up to that first line I've drawn. I'm going to make sure my D-ring is not on this side of that line. Now, of course, I've already stitched on there, so it couldn't get there anyway, but I just want to point out that your D-ring will be in between those two lines that you drew. Let me go down one more stitch to get up perfectly. Yep, there we go. You could back stitch there if you needed to, but I don't feel like I need to. I will have the rivets in place to kind of help as well. Pivot again and then go all the way back down that other side. Okay, that is that first rectangle. Now let's go ahead and do this other one. Let's start on the end, back stitch on that end. This time we'll make sure we take that D-ring kind of pushed up against that line we just sewed. Come down to your next line, pivot again, and sew across. So your D-ring is secured, so cute, and I love that she lets this D-ring connector actually be a kind of feature focus instead of like lots of patterns you'll see the D-ring kind of hanging off and I'm like, oh, it's not really cute, but it's necessary, and this really incorporates it in. I'm going to add 2 rivets. I'm going to trim up the edges, the overhang, and then I'll do this same thing to the back piece, and then we'll be ready to move on to our next steps. Off camera, I added a rivet to the strap. I just did 1 rivet there. I trimmed down the edges on both of the zipper sides here, and then I trimmed down the zipper tab here. I added rivets on either side of this D-ring, just use really small ones, and then I also sewed on this piece, added rivets here, and I also sewed on that tag and got it taken care of. It looks so cute, beautiful. For the slip pocket, I flattened it out and I ironed and pressed everything. I have the opening here at the bottom, and I slipped in one of these tags. I bought these tags from the designer Puntillas y Nudos. I've done several of her patterns, and so she came out recently with a line of woven tags. So I did grab one of those and I just slipped it in here. So I'm going to top stitch along the top, but then whenever I sew this to the lining, that'll be what attaches that tag there. I did add just a little bit of glue so it kind of would stay in and not shift so much. But let's go ahead and top stitch at the top of this slip pocket, and then we're going to add it to our lining. The pattern does say to use a contrasting print, but I didn't have a lot of my contrasting print left, and so I did just choose to use the lining, but a pop of color would have been nice on this for sure. Grab out one of your lining pieces, and we're just going to use the pattern measurements. And then what you'll do is you'll start sewing here at the top, you'll back stitch, you'll go down, over, back stitch back up. Whenever I go over here, that'll be what secures that tag in place. So I will just sew this 1/8 of an inch away. If you want, you can divide your slip pocket down the middle. I'm going to leave mine large so that it can hold my phone and things like that. So for me, these lining pieces are done. The next thing we need to do is we need to work on the darts on both exteriors and linings. I'll start with the exterior because it has the cutout, and I'll just show you that part. What you do is you fold this right sides together, and if you fold it, you should be able to match up those 2 darts you drew on there, or the dart bottom pieces, and it should end right where your peak is. If it's a little off, just kind of maneuver a little bit so that it fits. If it's really off, pull out your pattern piece again to make sure you have those measurements drawn right. What I do usually with these is I'll just start sewing here at the bottom. You can put your foot down and your needle will be going right in that line, so it'll be sewing directly on that dart you drew on there, and it should work out just perfectly there. So you sew directly on the line. Definitely back stitch when you start and stop. When you poke that out, you see you just have that really nice dart there. It gives it a great shape. You definitely want to trim down and leave maybe about 1/4 of an inch seam on this after you trim down the dart. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew up the other darts on both the exterior and lining pieces. Once I have all the darts sewn, then it will be time for us to add the zipper, and it's basically just going to go together like a regular zipper pouch. We'll attach the zipper, the linings, sew them right sides together, turn through the bottom. Very simple and easy, and then we'll be done and have just an adorable, cute crossbody bag. Look at the gorgeous shape those darts give this bag. I just love sewing darts on a bag. I think it just gives it such a wonderful shape and looks really nice. This pattern is looking adorable. I love the fabrics, the tag, the contrast here, everything looks great. We're ready to put everything together and finish this bag. So if you've made a simple pouch, this is what you're doing. It's no different at all. So the way I like to do that is I like to start with a lining piece. I'm going to start out with my lining right sides up. I'm going to lay my zipper right sides up, and I'm going to center it on here. We're going to just base this in place and then add an exterior piece. You do not have to do it this way. You can do this all in one step with the lining and exterior, making a traditional zipper sandwich. I just prefer to baste. So I'm just going to baste along this top edge of the zipper with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I want this to end up being the back of the bag. This exterior piece is going to be the back too. For the front, I want the piece with the tag on there, and I want it to be angling downward to the right. If you want yours differently, definitely choose to be doing it different. So for me, since my zipper is right sides up, I want to have that zipper pull closing to the left. I will put this down here, and this will give me the proper way for this to be the back of the bag. I am just going to place these two pieces right sides together. I'm going to clip all along this top edge and sew with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. Now that we have the lining and exterior attached, we are going to flip them so they are wrong sides together. And I'm going to go ahead and top stitch. I'm going to choose to top stitch from edge to edge. When I'm top stitching, I'm just going 1/8 of an inch away. I'm making sure to pull that lining down in the back to make sure it doesn't creep up. Now that we have the back of the bag completed, we will repeat these steps to do the same thing to this unsewn side of the zipper with the last two pieces, which will create the front. So you will sew them right sides together with the zipper sandwich in between. Then you will pull them apart wrong sides together and top stitch. We will come back after that to do the last steps on this pattern. After we have both the exteriors and the linings attached to the zipper and top stitch, make sure you separate the two, open up your zipper halfway, and then you're going to start by pulling your exteriors together. I like to start by matching up those darts and kind of seeing if I can get those to nest first. If I have too much of a gap here, I'll try to shift things around, but if I can, I'll keep everything matching up perfectly from the darts to the top of the bag. I'm going to go ahead and start clipping around. I'll clip the exteriors first, and you can see I'm just kind of nesting those darts, the seams. I trimmed down my seams, so I'm just nesting the small amount that's left and clipping that into place just to kind of help offset the bulk a little bit, but you shouldn't have a lot of bulk if you kept that fleece out of the seam allowance. After we get the exteriors clipped together, we'll do the same things with the lining, and then we're going to start sewing. I am having some offset there, not a sign of problem with the pattern, a sign with me. So you can see I have that little bit of offset there. I definitely want that to match up, so I'm going to have to shift it around. Unfortunately, I won't get the perfect dart on the bottom. It's okay. I'll just try to make it fit in the best as I can. No one will be looking at the bottom of the bag except me knowing that I didn't do it perfectly. have everything clipped around. I was able to get my sides to match up here at the top on both sides and the darts pretty decently. These little connector spots are going to be a spot that you really want to make sure looks really nice at the end. If you wanted, if you're really particular, you could just baste these two spots on this side and on this side, baste them first, and then sew the rest of the bag around. I'm going to take my chances, but I know that means I could have some shifting here. So just so you know, best practice, if it really bothers you, baste those two spots first before you do anything else. So we're going to sew all around this, just like a typical pouch, except it's going to be a crossbody. The thing is though, is we don't want to leave our opening here at the bottom like we typically do, because the space between these two darts is really small. So let's leave our opening on the side. That's what the pattern tells us to do. So we will leave an opening here. So I'll start sewing down here at the bottom, and then I will sew all the way around, and then when I get to about right here, a decent size opening, I'll back stitch there and break the stitches. So back stitch when you start and you stop. Use the full seam allowance. Try to keep your D-ring connectors there on the exterior in line. I have everything sewn around. I have an opening here on the side. I am not trimming down any seam allowances. I'm just going to simply go through to that exterior and start pushing it through there and see how our little bag looks. I'm going to go ahead and close up my lining here. I'm going to just clip this and sew it with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to close up that opening. As a side note, I definitely should have, and the pattern probably tells me to, I just didn't. I should have left this opening on the side with the 90-degree angle. That would have been much easier to close it, because where this one doesn't open as much, I'm going to have to, I still have plenty of room because my opening ends right there, but that'll be tighter. So just make note, keep your opening on the side with that 90-degree angle. After you get that closed up, go ahead and tuck everything in. My darts look great. Look how perfect those look. Beautiful, beautiful. This pattern, I'm telling you, it's so fun to sew. It's just like a very rewarding sew, I feel like. I'm going to put my strap on. I'm going to change the angle so we can make sure that you can see everything, and then we'll just get a really good look at this bag. This bag turned out so cute. I love the way it looks. I love the features on it. We're going to open it up real quick just so you can see inside. Super wide opening, plenty of room, slip pocket right there. Everything is beautiful. I don't have a, like, it's not very firm. If you wanted it really firm, you could add a layer of Decaville Light as well as the fleece. So in addition to the fleece, this bag would be a great one to do with vinyl. It could definitely handle the structure of vinyl on this bag. So that is some options. Love everything about it. So this is the SandDollar Crossbody. This is from the designer Needle and Anchor. This is using fabric from the Monthly Fabric Club from My Little Shindig. This tag is from Heartwood and Hyde. I'm not sure. The zipper might be from So Girly Fun. I do not remember that. But this pattern's a really great, fun, beginner-friendly pattern. The only thing I would maybe change is maybe a little bit firmer of structure on there if you're someone that likes a more structured bag. Definitely could be one you could do in vinyl. But definitely try this pattern out. It's just a fun sew. I love the way it looks. Thanks so much for watching another one of my tutorials today. And I hope today in your sewing room you get to have just fun sewing with beautiful bright colors that just makes the day more enjoyable. Thanks so much, and you have a great day.